I didn't take the holiday run because I love Christmas music or because I get warm feelings delivering soda to small towns. I took it because the bonus hits fast. My kids' braces aren't going to pay for themselves. The rent doesn't care that it's December, and my ex doesn't care that freight's been slow. Coca-Cola dangled that end-of-year money like a steak in front of a starving dog. Run the route, hit the checkpoints, stay on schedule, no drama. You finish clean, you get paid. Simple. And I got assigned to one of the show rigs. The red truck with the outline lights, the one people film with their phones like it's a celebrity. Company calls it holiday visibility. I call it a rolling target. They also give us this Santa kit. Not a full suit, not the beard and belly. Just a red jacket with a little white trim and a hat you're supposed to wear when you step out at partner stops. The email made it sound like a safety thing. Recognizable, approachable, consistent branding. Basically, look like Santa for 5 minutes so somebody can snap a picture and the company can pretend the whole world is smiling. I hate it. The jacket makes me sweat. The hat doesn't fit right. And I'm not exactly the kind of guy people want climbing down from a semi like, ho ho ho. But I put it in the passenger seat anyway. I told myself the same thing I always tell myself before a hard night. It's just miles, just weather, just a job. Outside the yard, the air already had that brittle bite. You could feel snow in it even before you saw it. The mountains ahead were dark lumps against darker sky. I checked my mirrors, checked my straps, checked my paperwork. Then I started rolling. One clean run. In, out, home. That was the plan. The yard was busy in that quiet, late-night way. Forklifts moving like bugs under floodlights, diesel fumes hanging low, men in hoodies and reflective vests pretending they weren't freezing. My trailer was already sealed when I got assigned the load. That's normal with the holiday runs. You don't get to wander around inside like it's your garage. You back in, they load, they seal, you sign, you go. I climbed down to meet the dock guy at the window, and he slid the paperwork out like he'd done it 1,000 times. Maybe he had. 53-foot dry van, he said, not looking up. Mixed product, holiday priority? Yeah, I said. I know. He tapped his pen on the page, and I noticed something I didn't like. An extra line item. Not the usual syrup or cans, not the promo displays. A pallet count that didn't match what my load plan should have been. And next to it, in little block letters, a warning sticker printed on the manifest. Temp, do not freeze. I frowned. Why's that on my run? The dock guy finally looked at me, eyes tired and flat. Partner freight, he said. Happens. They ride with you, you don't open the doors, you don't mess with it. He said it like it was nothing, like every soda trailer in America was dragging mystery freight in the back. I walked the side of the trailer anyway, boots crunching on salt. Near the front seam, I spotted a small plastic device zip-tied to a bracket, no bigger than a TV remote. A temperature logger. The kind that records the inside temp so someone can prove it stayed within range. That wasn't normal for Cola. I could have made a fuss, called someone, asked for a supervisor. But the clock was already ticking, and the bonus didn't pay if I missed my window. So I told myself the same lie every driver tells himself. It's probably fine. I signed, took my copies, and drove out with a sealed trailer full of things I wasn't supposed to question. By the time the highway started to climb, the cold had teeth. The wind came down off the hills in hard gusts that shoved at the trailer, and the sky had that heavy look like it was holding its breath. I still had a couple of hours before the worst of the grades, but I didn't like running low on fuel in the mountains. Not on a holiday route, not with a sealed trailer and a clock on my back. So I took the next exit and rolled into a gas station that looked like it had been built just to survive. One long canopy, bright lights, a couple tired pumps, and darkness pressing in from all sides, like the woods were leaning closer. And there it was again. Another red rig, another holiday show truck, with outline lights glowing like a ribbon around the cab and trailer, parked under the canopy like it belonged there, like it had been waiting. For a second, I honestly checked my dash to make sure I hadn't looped around and come back to the same place. But no. Different exit, different county, different mile marker. Same truck. A guy in a Santa jacket stood at the pump, hands tucked under his arms, rocking on his heels. When he saw me, he smiled like we were old co-workers. "Late one," he called. "Yeah," I said, forcing something that passed for a friendly tone. "Holiday run." He nodded like that explained everything. "Stay safe up there." I fueled fast, kept my eyes on my mirrors. The outline lights of his rig reflected in the wet pavement like red veins. Inside, the station smelled like fryer grease and cheap cinnamon. A middle-aged clerk behind the counter watched a tiny TV with no volume, the kind of guy who'd seen enough nights to stop being surprised. He glanced at my Santa hat on the seat when I set my coffee down. "You heading over the ridge?" "Looks like it," I said. He made a face. "Appalachians don't care about your schedule." I snorted. "I'll be fine." He didn't smile. "If the snow hits hard," he said, slow and flat, "don't step out just because you think you heard something. Mountains got ways of making you curious." Then he rang me up like he'd said nothing at all. I paid, took the cup, took the receipt, and did that little pocket check all drivers do without thinking. Keys, wallet, paperwork. Everything felt right. Outside, the wind hit me like a slap. It shoved the glass door open behind me, and for a half second, I had both hands full, trying not to drop the coffee or let the receipt fly away. That's when I got bumped. Hard enough that my shoulder clipped the doorframe and the coffee sloshed over the lid, burning my thumb. The guy who hit me was wearing the same red jacket I was carrying, white trim bright under the canopy lights. Santa on Santa. "Hey, my bad," he said quick, friendly, like we were buddies, and he'd just brushed past me in a crowded bar. He reached out with one hand, steadying my elbow like he was helping. With the other, he lifted his own coffee in a little apology salute. "No worries," I said automatically, because that's what you say when you don't want to make a scene. He moved on, boots crunching through salt, and disappeared between the pumps. I stood there a second, annoyed at myself for letting the coffee spill. The cold air turned the steam into a thin ghost in front of my face. Across the lot, the second red truck's outline lights hummed, steady and calm, like it was watching. I walked back to my Peterbilt, climbed up, and set the coffee in the cup holder. The cab smelled like vinyl and stale pine from the little air freshener I'd hung 2 days ago. I shoved the receipt into my logbook, slid my gloves on, and reached for my phone to check the updated weather. My fingers hit empty space. I patted my jacket pocket. Nothing. Checked the console, the seat, the dash. I even pulled the floor mat up like my phone might have crawled under there to die. For a second, my brain refused the obvious. I told myself I'd left it inside. I told myself it had fallen behind the seat. Then the burn on my thumb throbbed again, and my mind replayed the bump, the quick hand on my elbow, the friendly voice, the way he'd kept me talking just long enough. My stomach tightened. I looked out at the pumps. The canopy lights swayed a little in the wind. The lot was empty. and the second red truck was already gone. I sat there with my hands on the wheel like the steering column might give me an answer. No phone meant no weather update, no quick call to my dispatcher, no, hey, I got a problem. Without pulling off and finding a landline like it was 1998. I checked the glove box for the old backup flip phone the company used to issue. Gone. They'd stopped doing that years ago. Okay, I told myself out loud. Okay, it's fine. I'll call when I hit service. The words sounded thin in the cab. I eased back onto the road and turned the radio up. Partly for traffic, partly because silence makes your thoughts louder. A local station was crackling through a late-night talk segment. Host with a smooth voice, callers sounding tired and angry. I wasn't really listening until I heard a phrase that cut through the static. Largest pharmaceutical theft in the region. I glanced at the dash, like the radio might be lying. The host kept going. Authorities say an overnight shipment of high-value medication was taken from a distributor facility. No suspects named. They're asking for tips. Again, that's an overnight shipment. Temperature-controlled, high dollar. Missing somewhere between the warehouse and the next scan. One of the callers snorted. That's not some kid stealing cough syrup. That's organized. Exactly, the host said. And folks, with the holiday rush, trucks are moving constant. If you see something, report it. The segment faded under a commercial. A cheerful jingle. A man pretending to laugh. The contrast made my skin crawl a little. I told myself it had nothing to do with me. It was a big country. Stuff got stolen all the time. I hauled cola, not medicine. But my mind flicked back to that manifest line. Temp, do not freeze. And the little logger zip-tied near the front seam of my trailer. I felt a small, stupid spike of irritation. Like I'd been tricked into carrying someone else's problem. Then a gust of wind shoved the trailer, and I had to fight the wheel. And the road demanded my full attention again. The mountains ahead were blacker now, and the sky had started to fill with pale, drifting flakes. Snow had arrived. 20 miles later, the detour hit me like a punchline. Orange electronic boards flashed ahead through the snowfall. I-81 closed ahead. Use Alt Route. Under that, smaller letters. Road work incident. A line of taillights crawled toward an exit I didn't recognize, everybody obeying because nobody wanted to be the guy who ignored the sign and found himself parked behind a wreck for 6 hours. I eased off with the rest of them, trailers swaying as the wind slapped the side. The alternate route funneled us onto a 2-lane state highway that immediately started climbing. No median, no lights. Just black trees packed tight on both sides, and the pale line in my headlights bending up into the hills like a spine. The radio faded into static. It wasn't dead, just thin and distant, like the mountain was swallowing the signal. Great, I muttered. Perfect. I told myself it was normal. Mountains do that. Dead zones, weird echoes, trucks grinding uphill at 25 miles an hour. I'd run passes out west, run Appalachia plenty of times. This wasn't my first rodeo. But as the road tightened and the woods pressed in, my brain started digging up old stories like it couldn't help itself. My dad used to drive before he blew his back out. He wasn't a ghost story guy, not really. He was the kind of man who laughed at people who said a place felt wrong. But every once in a while, late at night when the house was quiet and he'd had a beer too many, he'd talk about the mountains. Appalachia's different, he'd say. It ain't the bears that get you. It's the silence. You pull over at night, you step out, and you realize you're not alone, even when you can't see a damn thing. When I was younger, I thought he meant people. Moonshiners, meth cooks, angry locals who didn't want outsiders on their roads. Now, climbing into a storm with no phone and no good radio, I found myself repeating his line under my breath. "I don't believe in that stuff," I said to the empty cab. But saying it out loud didn't make the woods feel any farther away. The climb got slow enough that I could feel every pound behind me. Snow came harder, thick flakes turning my headlights into a tunnel. The road narrowed into that Appalachian kind of narrow. No shoulder, just a drop on one side and trees on the other. Like the mountain didn't believe in second chances. I checked my mirrors out of habit. At first, I saw nothing but white spray and darkness. Then, a thin red glow flickered through the snow. Too clean, too steady to be brake lights. It traced the shape of a cab, then the edge of a trailer, like somebody had drawn a neon outline in the storm. My stomach tightened. Another holiday rig behind me. Not way back, not closing fast, just sitting there, perfectly placed. The same red outline lights I had on my truck, shining through the snow like a warning. I told myself it was coincidence. A second Coca-Cola driver got routed the same way. Same schedule, same detour, same luck. But then I tapped my brakes. Just a gentle check. The red glow behind me didn't surge like normal taillights. It pulsed in the exact same rhythm my own outline lights did, like we were synced. I eased right to center myself in the lane. The glow adjusted the same way, like it was attached to my trailer by an invisible chain. I took a curve left. It took the curve left, holding the same distance like it had a ruler and a grudge. "Okay," I said. My voice came out quieter than I meant. "Okay, buddy. I see you." A gust hit the side of my trailer, and I corrected. Small. Quick. In the mirror, the red outline corrected at the exact same instant. Not a second later. The same instant. That's when the stupid thought landed in my head, sharp and cold. He's not following me. He's copying me. And in the blowing snow with no phone and a deadening radio, that felt worse than being chased. I tried to shake the feeling off. Drivers get weird in bad weather. You stare at snow long enough, your brain starts drawing faces in it. Patterns. Ghosts. So I did what you're supposed to do. I reached for the mic. "Breaker 19, I said into the CB, trying to sound normal. "Any Coca-Cola rigs on this detour? Red show truck behind a Peterbilt, you got a copy?" Static answered me. Thick, heavy, like someone pouring sand into the speaker. Then a faint voice tried to push through, chopped up by interference. "You, Ridge, chains." Gone. I changed channels. Same hiss. I tried the company unit on the dash, the one tied into dispatch. It was supposed to be more reliable than CB, tied to their network. It blinked, searched, blinked again. For a second it connected, just long enough to tease me. "Dispatch, this is unit..." I read my truck number off the sticker, then stopped because the signal dipped. "Holiday Run, I'm on the I-81 detour up through the mountains. I've got another red show rig behind me. Can you confirm?" The speaker crackled. A voice came through, stretched and warping like it was underwater. "Say again. You've got... behind you?" "Another Coke show truck," I said louder. "Same lights, same setup. He's been on me since the last exit." Static surged, then cleared for one sharp second. "Listen to me," the dispatcher said. And now his tone was different, alert, no longer bored. "I don't see a second unit on your route. I don't see any other show rigs in that corridor. You are alone on that assignment." I swallowed. "That's not possible. I'm looking at him." "You're the only one scanned through the yard," he said fast. "Only one sealed. Only one on that alt route in our system. You understand? You're alone." The connection stuttered. His last words came through like a knife. "No second truck." Then the screen on the unit flashed, reconnecting, and the voice vanished into static. I gripped the mic, staring at the mirror. The red outline behind me still held perfect distance, steady as a heartbeat. The detour climbed into a tighter grade, the kind that makes your trailer feel like an anchor. Snow packed into the grooves of the road, and my tires started to hunt for grip. Little slips you feel in your spine before you see them on the dash. Up ahead, my headlights caught the reflective flash of a roadside sign. Big letters. Chains required beyond this point. A smaller sign underneath had arrows pointing toward a wide gravel turnout. Chain up area. I exhaled hard. Great. Exactly what I needed at midnight in a storm, getting out and crawling around in the snow. But that sign wasn't a suggestion. Out here, chains required meant you either put chains on your drive tires or you didn't go anywhere. Not because the law wanted to be dramatic, because a loaded semi on ice will just sit there and spin until it slides sideways and takes the whole road with it. I eased into the turnout, hazard lights ticking like a slow heartbeat. The turnout was mostly empty, a couple faint tail lights far ahead, disappearing into white. No line of trucks, no crowded chaos, just wind and snow and the crunch of gravel under my tires. I killed the engine for a second and listened. Nothing but the storm. Then I looked in the mirror. The second red outline drifted into the turnout behind me, smooth and unhurried. It didn't pull too close. It didn't hang back. It parked itself at the same careful distance it had held for miles, like it knew exactly where it belonged. My mouth went dry. I grabbed my gloves, my chain bag, and the stupid Santa jacket by reflex. Then stopped. The clerk's warning slid into my head like a cold finger. Don't step out just because you think you heard something. I stared at the door handle, feeling the weight of the decision. Outside was wind, ice, and that red glow behind me. Inside was my cab. And for the first time all night, I didn't feel like I was in control of the road. I didn't have a choice. Chains weren't optional, and sitting here all night wasn't either. So I layered up fast, hood tight, gloves on, boots cinched, and stepped down into the snow like I was stepping into deep water. The wind hit my face hard enough to make my eyes water. Snow stung like sand. My outline lights washed the turnout in red, and for a second I hated them. Hated how far they carried. Hated how they painted me onto the mountain. I kept my head down and worked the chains the way you do when you've done it 100 times. Lay them out straight, drape them over the tire, crawl in, hook the inside, then the outside, then tighten until your knuckles ache. Metal clinked. My breath came out in loud white bursts. Behind me, the other truck idled, outline lights humming. I didn't look at it. I didn't want to give it attention, like that mattered. When I finished the first side, I stood and wiped snow off my eyebrows with the back of my glove. The turnout felt empty in a way that made my skin crawl. No voices, no doors opening, no other engines. Just my truck, that truck, and the woods. I climbed back up and slammed the door, grateful for the sudden quiet. The cab smelled warm, human, safe. I reached for the CB mic again, just out of habit. Static, not the normal hiss. This was dead, like the speaker had been unplugged. I twisted the squelch, changed channels, nothing. I tapped the mic like that would fix it. Then, from somewhere under the cab, I heard a small sound. muffled by the storm and the insulation. A quick, dull pop. Not loud. Not like a gunshot. More like a plastic clip snapping or a rock hitting a skid plate. At the exact same moment, the company comms unit on my dash blinked once, twice, then went dark. No reconnecting, just black. I stared at it, waiting for it to come back. It didn't. Outside, the wind howled, and the outline lights kept glowing like nothing had happened. But inside my truck, the world had gone silent. For a few seconds, I just sat there, listening to nothing. It's a weird feeling when a machine goes quiet. Trucks are always talking, engine, fan, heater, radio, tires singing on pavement. Even the static is a kind of company. Now it was like someone had shut a door on the world. I leaned forward and hit the power button on the comms unit. Nothing. I checked the fuse panel out of reflex, but I wasn't about to start tearing apart wiring in a blizzard. I keyed the CB again, hoping it was just frozen. Dead. My pulse started to thump in my ears. I swallowed and reached for the one thing I had left. My phone. My hand went to the spot on the console where I always tossed it when I was driving. Empty. I checked the cup holder, the passenger seat, the little tray by the dash. Then I remembered the bump at the gas station, the burn on my thumb, the sorry man voice, the hand on my elbow. A cold line ran up my spine. No, I muttered. No way. I dug through the glove box like the phone might magically appear if I was angry enough. I pulled my jacket off and shook it. I checked my back pocket, even though I knew I hadn't put it there. I lifted the floor mat again, like that made any sense. Nothing. I sat back, breathing hard, and stared at the windshield. Snow hammered the glass. The wipers fought to keep up, leaving smeared arcs of visibility that vanished in seconds. No phone, no CB, no dispatch. I looked at the signal icon on the little backup tablet the company issued for logs. It showed one lonely bar, then flickered, then dropped to SOS only, before going blank again. Dead zone. Mountains. Of course it was dead zone. I laughed once, short, ugly. The kind of laugh you do when you're trying not to panic. Outside, the second red truck's outline lights glowed through the snow behind me, steady and patient. And for the first time, it hit me in a simple, brutal way. Even if I wanted to call for help, I couldn't. I was cut off. I should have turned around right then. That was the smart move. That was the safe move. Chains or no chains, bonus or no bonus. You don't keep climbing into a storm when your lifeline, your comms, your phone, is gone. But the problem with mountains is they don't always give you a clean choice. Sometimes they give you momentum. I eased out of the turnout and crawled back onto the grade, chains biting into the packed snow with a heavy, grinding rhythm. The trailer followed like a stubborn animal. Visibility was maybe 50 feet, and every time the wind gusted, it tried to shove me sideways. A mile later, my headlights caught a line of bright reflectors and orange barricades spanning the road. Not a full wall, more like a choke point. 2 county trucks sat sideways with hazard lights flashing. Men in thick jackets stood in the storm, waving flashlights. Road crews. They were closing the pass. I slowed and rolled up to the nearest worker. He leaned toward my window, face half hidden behind a neck gaiter, snow stuck to his eyebrows like white fur. "You got chains?" he shouted over the wind. "Yeah," I shouted back. "Just put 'em on." He glanced past me at my trailer, then at the red glow behind me, cutting through the snow. "You 2 are the last ones," he said. "After you, we drop the gate. Nobody else comes up till morning." "Morning?" I said. But the wind stole the word. He pointed uphill. Wreck ahead. Drifted in. We got a plow coming from the other side when it can. You keep moving. Keep it slow. Don't stop unless you have to. I nodded. Because what else do you do? He slapped the side of my door, more a signal than a friendly gesture, and waved me through. In the mirror, the second red truck rolled forward too. Smooth, confident, like it had expected this. As I climbed past the barricades, I looked back one last time. The road crew swung their trucks into position. Orange cones disappeared under fresh snow. The chain stretched across the road like a line drawn in ink. They weren't kidding. We were the last ones in. The pass narrowed after the closure, the mountain squeezing the road into a twisting ribbon. Chains clattered under me, steady and loud, like teeth. Every curve came with a little prayer. No ice patch, no sudden gust, no oncoming headlights sliding wide. For 10 minutes, I saw nothing but snow and trees. Then, around a right-hand bend, my headlights caught something that didn't belong. A wall of white, not just drifting snow. A packed, rounded berm that cut across the lane like someone had dumped a truckload of winter right onto the road. Beyond it, faintly, the glow of hazard lights blinked and vanished in the storm. I eased forward until I could make out the shape. Dark metal, tilted wrong, half swallowed by powder. A semi, jackknifed or slid into the ditch. The trailer was angled downhill, the tractor nose buried in snow like it had tried to dive away from something and failed. I stopped. The chains bit and held, the truck rocking once and settling. My wipers dragged slow lines across the glass, fighting the accumulating ice. For a second, I waited for a voice on the radio. A horn, a shout, something human. Nothing. I could have tried to creep around it, but there was no shoulder, just a drop into trees on one side and a rock wall on the other. The road was barely wide enough for me, even before the drift. I put it in neutral and stared. This was it. Ahead, blocked by a wreck and a drift deep enough to hide a car. Behind, closed by road crews who just chained off the mountain. A car might have been able to U-turn. A rig like mine. Not without a miracle and a lot of empty space. In the mirror, the second red truck rolled up and stopped at the same careful distance it always kept. Outline lights glowing steady through the snow like a heartbeat. We sat there facing the same dead end, two matching red ghosts in a white world, and the realization settled over me with the same weight as the trailer on my axles. There was nowhere to go. No forward, no back. Just this stretch of road, this storm, and whatever else had chosen to share it with us. I couldn't just sit in the lane staring at that wreck like an idiot. If a plow came through or the wind shifted, I'd be the next thing buried. There was a little widened patch off to the right. Barely a turnout, more like the mountain had shrugged and given up 2 extra feet. A faded sign half buried in snow said, "Chain up area," like somebody once had a sense of humor. I eased my Peterbilt into it. Slow, chains crunching. The truck settled with a tired groan. The snow was deeper here, untouched, smooth as a sheet. No other tire tracks, no boot prints, just blank white pressed up against black trees. In the mirror, the second red truck rolled forward and stopped again at the same careful distance. It didn't try to pass, didn't honk, didn't flash. It just waited. I told myself I needed to see the blockage up close, needed to know how bad it was. So I cracked the door and stepped down into the wind. Instant regret. The cold punched through my jacket like it wasn't even there. Snow whipped into my face, and for a second my outline lights painted everything red, the road, the drift, the trunks of the trees. I kept one hand on the grab bar, boots planted like the mountain might tilt. That's when I saw them. Not footprints, not tire marks. Deep depressions near the edge of the woods, half filled with fresh snow. Two of them close together, like something had stood there and waited. The shape wasn't clean, storm had softened it. But the depth was wrong. Too deep for a deer. Too wide for a man. I stared, trying to make my brain pick a normal answer. Bear, my mind offered. But bears didn't stand upright, and still long enough to leave impressions like that. And whatever made those dents had been heavy. Heavy enough to compress the snow down to hard ice. The wind shifted, and the trees made a low creaking sound, like a house settling. I climbed back into the cab fast and locked the door. From inside, the impressions were still there, just at the edge of my headlight beam, like a warning. I told myself I was overthinking it. Snow does weird things. Wind carves shapes. A drifting branch can hit the ground and leave a mark that looks like anything you want it to look like if you're tired enough. That's what I told myself while I sat there with both hands on the wheel, breathing through my nose like I was trying to calm down a horse. I kept my headlights on, kept my hazards ticking, kept my eyes bouncing between the wreck ahead and the mirror behind. The second truck sat there, patient, glowing red through the storm. Then the sound came. A scrape. Not wind, not ice sliding off the fender. A long, slow, metallic drag along the side of my trailer. It started near the front, right where that temperature logger was zip-tied, and moved back, steady, like something was running a heavy nail along aluminum. My whole body went cold. The scrape stopped, and for half a second, there was only the storm again. Then it happened a second time, harder. The trailer vibrated, a low shudder I felt through the seat. I glanced at the mirror, expecting to see the other truck too close, its bumper grinding against my doors. But it was still there. Same distance, same glow, not touching me. The scrape came again, lower this time, like it was under the trailer. I grabbed my flashlight without thinking, then froze with it in my hand. The clerk's words flashed through my mind. Don't step out just because you think you heard something. My dad's voice layered on top of it, rough with old memory. It ain't the bears that get you. It's the silence. I swallowed and forced myself to stay put. I killed the cab light so the windows wouldn't mirror my own face back at me. I turned the heater fan down. I stopped moving. I just listened. Outside, something shifted in the snow. A soft crunch, too close to be a falling branch. Then another. And then, right against the trailer wall, a dull thump, like a shoulder hitting metal. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. I held my breath, eyes wide, waiting for the next sound, waiting to find out if logic still mattered. The scrape didn't come again. That was almost worse. Silence lets your imagination start building things you can't tear down. I kept my eyes locked on the side mirror, barely blinking. Snow swirled in the headlight beams like ash. The wreck ahead was just a dark shape now, hazard lights blinking slower than my pulse. Then the red glow behind me changed. Not brighter, closer. The second truck started rolling forward, slow and smooth, like it was moving on rails. Its outline lights weren't just visible anymore. They were painting the whole turnout red. My mirrors filled with that glow until it felt like I was sitting inside someone else's brake lights. I watched it come, expecting at any second for it to stop at that same careful distance. It didn't. It crept up until I could see details through the snow, chrome, grille, the curve of the hood. Same silhouette as mine. same holiday ribbon of light. Peterbilt shape. Too perfect. It eased closer and closer until it was nearly bumper to bumper with my trailer doors. Close enough that if I stepped out, I'd be walking between two red walls. That wasn't friendly. That wasn't normal. Then the lights changed again. It kicked into full show mode. Extra strips along the cab, trailer edges, maybe even underglow. The red outline pulsed, bright and steady, like a Christmas tree turned inside out. My eyes watered. The snow around us glowed pink. The forest line looked like it was bleeding. I held still, hand on the door lock. A shadow moved on the other truck, someone climbing down. A Santa jacket against red light, face hidden by the hood and the storm. Another shadow joined him. Two figures, both in red and white, both moving with purpose. No casual wave this time. No late one joke. They walked toward my cab like they owned the night. And in that moment, everything snapped into focus in the simplest, ugliest way. That second truck wasn't an accident. It wasn't coincidence. It was here for me. My first instinct was to hit the horn and wake up the whole mountain. Then I remembered there was nobody to wake. Just trees, snow, a wreck ahead, a closed gate behind, and two men walking toward my door like this was a scheduled appointment. I locked the door again, even though it was already locked. I flipped the deadbolt. I did every little superstition a man does when he knows metal and glass are the only things between him and whatever's outside. The two Santas didn't hurry. That was the part that made my skin crawl. They moved like they had all the time in the world, boots crunching slow through the snow, shoulders tight against the wind. One of them kept his head down, eyes on my steps. The other kept looking past me, at the trailer, at the mirrors, at the woods, like he was making sure nobody else was watching. When they got close enough, my headlights caught something in the first guy's hand. A long, dark shape. Not a tool you use to change a tire. Something he held low, like he didn't want it obvious, but not hidden either. A message. The second guy had a flashlight, but he wasn't using it to see. He aimed it right at my windshield and held it there, steady. White glare bouncing off the glass, turning my cab into a fishbowl. I raised my arm to block the light and felt my pulse hammer in my throat. "Open up," he shouted. His voice came muffled through the storm and the glass, but the tone didn't need translation. "Now." I shook my head once. He smiled. Just a quick curl at the edge of his mouth, like he'd expected that. The guy with the dark shape stepped onto my first metal rung. The whole cab creaked under his weight. And then, behind them, out near the tree line, snow crunched in a way that didn't match the wind. Both men paused, just for a heartbeat, like something had stepped closer. The first hit sounded like a car door being slammed inside a steel drum. 1 second, those two Santas were right there. Boots in my headlight beam, flashlight burning my eyes. And the next, the world outside my cab lurched sideways. The beam of the flashlight jerked up, scraped across the trees, then snapped off the windshield like a broken leash. For a split second, I saw both men turn toward the tree line at the exact same time, like something had pulled their attention with a hook. Then the snow exploded. Not like wind, not like a drift falling, like something heavy had moved through it fast. I didn't see a face. I didn't see hands. I saw a shape in motion, dark against red light. Too big to be a man, too wrong to be a deer. The air seemed to thicken, like the storm itself leaned in. One of the men made a sound that didn't finish. It cut off mid-breath. The flashlight slipped from his hand, and dropped into the snow, still on, the beam spinning in a slow, useless circle. It painted red, white, red across the ground as it turned, catching flashes of boots, a Santa sleeve, then nothing but churned powder. The other guy scrambled backward so hard he nearly fell. He didn't try to help. He didn't shout orders. He just ran, stumbling through knee-high snow, arms windmilling, trying to get back to the clone truck. Something hit my trailer wall again, a dull, body-weight thump that made the metal vibrate under my fingertips on the steering wheel. The runner reached his cab, clawed the door open, and threw himself inside. The clone's engine revved like a panicked animal. Its outline lights flared brighter for a moment, and in that flare, I saw the snow where the first man had been. Flattened, disturbed, empty of movement. The clone truck backed off fast, tires spinning, then stopped, like it had remembered it couldn't go anywhere. And then the woods went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. The kind of quiet that means something is listening. I didn't move for a long time. My hands were locked on the steering wheel so tight my fingers went numb. My throat felt dry and raw, like I'd been screaming, even though I hadn't made a sound. Outside, the flashlight still lay in the snow, its beam pointing up now, a pale spear stabbing into the blizzard until the flakes swallowed it. The clone truck idled a few yards back, outline lights pulsing like a nervous heartbeat. And the man who'd been at my door, nothing. No moaning, no crawling, no angry shout. Just a dark smear in the snow where something heavy had rolled through. And then the storm laid fresh powder over it like a blanket. The only sounds were the wind and my engine, the heater fan, the occasional clink of my chains settling as the tires cooled. Normal truck sounds, like the universe was trying to pretend nothing had happened. I swallowed and forced myself to breathe slow. Every part of me wanted to jump out, to look, to prove to my brain that the guy was still there, that it was just a bear, that it was just something I could understand. But I couldn't shake what I'd seen, what I hadn't seen. The way the flashlight beam had jerked as if somebody yanked the arm holding it. The weight in that impact. The speed. My mind searched for labels like a man grabbing for handholds in the dark. Bear, cougar, drunk local. None of them fit. And even if it was something normal, the lesson was the same. Stepping outside was volunteering. I looked at my door handle. Looked at the window. Thin glass, thin metal, a lock that was meant to keep honest people honest. I thought about the clerk's voice. Don't step out just because you think you heard something. I thought about my dad's line about silence. Then I looked at the mirror again. The clone truck sat there, close enough that its red glow filled my cab, but not close enough to touch me. Like it was afraid now. That's when the truth settled in. Simple and brutal. Whatever hit them could hit me. And out there in this storm, I would never see it coming. At first, I expected the clone truck to do something stupid. Gun it forward, ram my trailer doors, flash the high beams like a threat. Anything that looked like control. Instead, it just sat there, idling, glowing, waiting. A minute passed. 2. The storm kept pouring snow into the turnout like it was trying to bury us both and forget we ever existed. The red outline lights on the clone truck pulsed in a slow pattern. Steady enough to look intentional, nervous enough to look like a mistake. Then the driver's door of the clone cracked open. Just an inch. A thin slice of darkness. A voice came out. Low and shaky, carried by the wind. "Hey," it called. "Hey, listen." Not friendly, not confident, not like the guy who told me late one at the pumps. This voice sounded like a man trying to keep his teeth from chattering. I stayed still, didn't answer, didn't even turn on the cab light. Another second of hesitation. Then the door opened a little wider. Someone leaned out, only a shoulder, only a hooded head, nothing exposed long enough for me to see a face. "Where the hell did he go?" the voice said, talking more to itself than to me. "Where?" It stopped, like it had remembered something. The door slammed shut fast. A second later, the clone truck's engine revved. It rolled backward a few feet, tires spinning, then stopped again. Like the driver had tried to create space and realized there wasn't any to take. They were trapped too. Same wreck ahead, same closed gate behind. Same mountain pressing in from both sides. I watched their brake lights flicker, then go steady. I watched the outline lights switch patterns, then switch back, like someone inside was mashing buttons with sweaty hands. It hit me then that whatever professionalism they'd walked up with was gone. They didn't look like hunters anymore. They looked like men who'd just seen the world make a rule they couldn't break. And that rule was simple. Out here, the storm wasn't the worst thing. Something else owned the dark. The first thing that started killing me wasn't the cold outside. It was the cold inside. With the engine idling and the heater running, the cab should have stayed comfortable. Not tropical, but livable. Instead, my breath kept hanging in front of my face, and the windshield began to fog from the inside, like the glass was sweating fear. I cranked the defroster. The fan whined louder. Warm air pushed up against the windshield, and lost. The moisture turned into a milky film, then into a thin skin of ice at the edges, creeping inward in delicate spiderwebs. I wiped at it with my glove. It smeared. I tried a rag from my door pocket. That helped for maybe 30 seconds before the fog rolled back in, thicker. I glanced at my fuel gauge and felt my stomach drop a half inch. I wasn't empty, but I wasn't full either. And idling in sub-freezing temps eats fuel like a bad habit, especially when you're running heat, lights, everything. If I shut the engine off to save diesel, the cab would turn into a refrigerator fast. The windshield would freeze solid. If something happened, if I needed to move, I'd be blind. If I kept idling, I'd stay warm. Right up until I didn't. Outside, the clone truck's red outline lights pulsed through the fogged glass, turning my cab into a dim red aquarium. I could barely see the tree line anymore. The world had turned into a smear of snow and glow. I cracked the window a finger width to vent the humidity. Cold air knifed in instantly. The hair on my arms lifted. And somewhere out there, in that new slice of silence, I heard a soft crunch, too close to be the wind. I froze with my hand still on the window latch, suddenly aware of how little I could see, and how easy it would be for something to stand right outside my fogged-up glass. I needed a clearer windshield, needed air circulation, needed to stop feeling like I was trapped in a fogged-up box. But every solution led back to the same problem. Go outside. I leaned forward and squinted through the smeared glass. The wreck ahead was just a shadow now. The clone truck behind was a red glow, patient and close. The forest was a black wall I couldn't read. I told myself I'd do it fast. 2 seconds. Knock the snow off the steps, clear the door seal, make sure I wasn't about to get stuck in my own cab like an idiot. I grabbed my flashlight, pocketed it, then stopped. Light felt dangerous now, like raising your hand in a dark room and shouting, "Here I am." So I left the flashlight off, I cracked the door and the wind tried to rip it out of my hand. Snow spilled into the cab immediately, turning the floor mat white. I forced it open wider and stepped down onto the top rung. My boot slipped. Not a full fall, but enough to spike my heart. The step was coated in a slick glaze, ice polished smooth by wind and my own heat. Snow had packed under the edge where the step met the frame, frozen solid like cement. I tested it again, carefully. The rung creaked. The whole cab shifted slightly as the wind pushed. I looked down at the lower steps and saw the real problem. Snow had drifted up against them, then hardened. The door seal was rimed with ice. If I got out and the door swung shut behind me, there was a chance it wouldn't reopen clean. Or worse, if I got out and tried to slam it shut fast, it might not latch. And if it didn't latch, I'd be standing in a blizzard, fighting a frozen door with numb hands. I pictured it too clearly. Me yanking on the handle, the latch not catching, the wind prying the door back open, red light spilling out like blood. I backed up into the cab and slammed the door anyway, more to hear the click than anything. I locked it twice, then sat there with my heart pounding. The mountain didn't care about my comfort. It cared about mistakes. And outside, mistakes didn't get second chances. After that near slip, I stopped pretending I was brave. I sat back with both hands on my thighs, breathing slow, trying to make decisions like a professional instead of a scared animal. That's when the clone started playing with me. It began with a flash, not headlights. Those were already on. This was the outline light snapping brighter for a half second, like a camera strobe. Red, white, red through my fogged glass, sharp enough to make my eyes twitch. Then darkness again, just the normal glow. A minute passed. Another flash, this time paired with a short honk, one quick blast, not angry, not warning, like someone tapping you on the shoulder. My jaw clenched. I didn't respond, didn't move. I stared straight ahead and forced myself to count my breaths. The third time it happened, the honk came twice. Quick, quick, friendly code. Like, you awake? Or, open up. I reached for my hazard switch and turned it off, then back on, just to reassure myself I still controlled something. The ticking sounded too loud in the quiet. Then the clone hit me with a longer horn blast, low and heavy. It vibrated through my seat and into my ribs. The sound rolled down the mountain and vanished into the storm like a warning you couldn't understand. Immediately after, its lights strobed again, brighter, longer. The windshield fog turned the pulses into a red smear, like a heartbeat on a monitor. I could feel what they wanted. They weren't trying to scare me into running. They were trying to lure me into doing the stupid thing. Crack the door, look out, step down just for a second. Because that's how you get a man. Not with a battering ram, with curiosity and urgency. I swallowed and stayed still. Outside, the horn went silent. Then I heard something else. A soft, slow scrape along the side of the trailer again. Low this time, like it was under the floor. And the clone didn't honk anymore, like it had gotten what it wanted. I stared into the red haze and forced my brain to do what fear hates: pattern recognition. Because panic is loud, but patterns are useful. The clone had flashed its lights 3 times now. Each time my instinct screamed to look, just to confirm, just to understand. And each time I resisted, something else happened instead out near the trees. Not big, not cinematic. Small sounds, small movements. The kind you'd miss if you weren't already sitting there with your nerves peeled raw. First flash, nothing, except that weird crunch near the tree line. Second flash, branches shifted, not from wind, From weight? A low, slow creak like a trunk being leaned on. Third flash, the scrape under my trailer, like something passing beneath the floor. It wasn't random. The forest reacted. I leaned forward, squinting through the fogged glass until my eyes watered. The red glow from the clone truck turned the snow into a dim stage. I couldn't see much, but I could see enough. Every time the clone's light surged brighter, the darkness between the trees seemed to deepen, like the bright light made the shadows sharper, like it pulled attention in. And whenever there was movement outside, when the Santa guys had walked up, when a door had cracked, when a flashlight had swung, something had answered back. Hard, fast, heavy, like the woods didn't like people stepping out, like it didn't like being looked at. I thought about the deep depressions in the snow, about the way that first guy's sound cut off mid-breath, about how quickly the clone truck had backed off afterward. They'd come to take me, sure. But after that attack, they weren't trying to storm me anymore. They were trying to make me do it to myself. Make me open the door, make me step down. Because they didn't want to go out there either. I felt a grim, ugly kind of clarity settle in. The clone's light wasn't just intimidation, it was bait. A lighthouse in a storm, calling something in the dark closer. And as much as that terrified me, it also meant one thing. If I could control my own light, I might be able to control where the danger went. I stared at my own switches like they were a weapon rack. The holiday setup had a control panel mounted low by my left knee. Company installed, sealed with a little sticker that said, "Do not tamper." It handled the outline lights, the pulse patterns, the whole look at me circus. Normally, it was a point of pride. Kids waving from minivans, people filming at truck stops, the company reposting it like we were spreading joy. Right now, it felt like a flare gun aimed at my own head. I reached down and flipped the selector from show to road. The effect was immediate. The red outline around my cab and trailer went dim, then shut off entirely, leaving only my standard marker lights and headlights. The turnout dropped into a darker, more natural kind of night. The snow in front of me stopped glowing pink. The trees went back to being trees instead of silhouettes in a horror movie. In the mirror, the clone truck still blazed bright, like a floating red frame in the storm. For a moment, it made mine look invisible by comparison. I held my breath, waiting for something to slam into the trailer again. Nothing. The scrape I'd been bracing for didn't come. The soft crunches near the tree line faded into the wind. Even the storm seemed quieter without that red wash. It wasn't peaceful. It was just less pressured, like I'd stopped ringing a dinner bell. A minute passed, then another. The clone truck flashed its outline lights once, sharp and impatient, like it was offended I'd stopped playing along. Its horn gave a short blast, the same friendly code it had used earlier. I didn't answer. And for the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I'd moved a piece on the board instead of being shoved around. Whatever was out there, whatever had hit those guys, responded to light and movement. Maybe it hated it. Maybe it hunted it. Maybe it just couldn't ignore it. Either way, I wasn't going to be the brightest thing on this mountain anymore. I kept my truck in road, hands steady on the wheel, eyes fixed on the mirror. Let the clone be the lighthouse. Let it call the dark. For a while, the mountain held its breath. No horn, no strobe, no scrape. Just wind and the soft tick of my cooling chains. I started to wonder if my brain had finally cracked. if I'd imagined half of it, because I was tired and cut off and scared. The human mind will invent monsters before it admits it's helpless. Then I heard it. A sound from behind the cab wall. Not from the engine, not from the storm. A cough, low, weak, like someone trying not to make noise. I froze so hard my shoulders ached. I waited, telling myself it was my own throat, the heater drying the air, the metal popping as it cooled. Nothing. Then, from the trailer again, 2 quick taps. Not random vibrations, not shifting freight, a deliberate rhythm. Tap, tap. My mouth went dry. I leaned my ear toward the sleeper wall as if that would help. The noise was faint, muffled by insulation and 40 feet of cargo. But it was there. A human signal. My first thought wasn't heroic. It wasn't, I have to save him. My first thought was ugly and practical. They've got someone back there. Which meant this wasn't just about stealing my truck or my load. This was bigger, organized, planned. I pictured the dock guy's flat eyes, the extra line item, the temperature logger, the radio segment about stolen meds. All those little hints I'd ignored because they were inconvenient. I looked at the trailer latch handle in my mind, icy, stiff, the kind that fights you even on a good day. Out there, near the dark woods, with the clone truck glowing and something listening, opening the doors would be suicide. I swallowed hard and whispered, "Hey." No response, just wind. Then the cough came again, a little harsher, like the person was struggling to breathe quietly. Followed by one more tap, slow this time, almost a plea. I sat back, heart racing, and stared at the mirror where the clone truck waited like a red sentinel. Now I had a new problem, not just survival, responsibility. The first time they spoke to me, I almost jumped out of my skin. It wasn't over the radio. It wasn't through a speaker. It was a voice carried by the wind, coming from the clone truck like someone had cracked a window and leaned out just enough to talk. "Driver," the voice called. "Hey, driver, listen." I didn't move, didn't answer. I just watched the glow through my fogged glass. "We don't want problems," the voice said. It sounded older than the guy at the gas station. Thicker, nervous under the control. "You give us the keys and open your door and we'll leave. That's it. Nobody gets hurt." I actually laughed. Quiet, bitter. Nobody gets hurt. I'd watched one of them get erased in front of my windshield like he'd stepped into a bear trap made of darkness. Another voice chimed in, higher, impatient. "We can't sit here all night. Just do it. Open up and hand him over." They were trying to sound calm, but I heard what was underneath. Urgency. Fear. They weren't threatening to rush me anymore. They weren't climbing my steps. They weren't pounding on the door. Because they didn't want to be outside. They wanted me to come to them. A horn gave a short blast, one quick tap, like punctuation. "Come on," the first voice said again, softer now, almost reasonable. "You got no phone, no radio. No one's coming till morning. Let's be smart." I leaned forward and spoke, keeping my voice low and steady. "I'm not opening anything," I said. A pause. Wind. Snow against glass. Then the higher voice snapped, "Then we'll take it." But it sounded like a tantrum, not a plan. Another pause. Longer. I imagined them sitting in that glowing cab, hands shaking, staring at the woods the way I was. Finally, the first voice returned. Quieter. Like he hated himself for it. "Okay," he said. "Okay, just don't do anything stupid." The window slid shut. The clone truck's lights dimmed for a moment, then returned, and I realized something that made my stomach twist. For the first time, I wasn't the only one trapped in here. I was the only one willing to wait. Once they stopped talking, the silence got loud again. Not the quiet kind, the thinking kind. I sat there with my hands wrapped around my coffee, like it was a heat lamp, then replayed the night in order, like I was watching security footage in my head. The second red truck at the gas station, parked under the canopy like it owned the place. The friendly guy in a Santa jacket who nodded at me like we were on the same team. The bump at the door, hard enough to spill my coffee, smooth enough to feel accidental. His hand on my elbow for half a second. The way he kept my mouth moving while his fingers did the real work. My phone gone. Then the detour sign. The mountains. The weak radio. The dispatcher's voice cutting through just long enough to say, "No second truck." And then that muffled little pop under my cab. The sound I'd almost ignored because it wasn't dramatic. Right after it, the company unit went black. No reconnect, no warning. That wasn't bad luck. That was timing. They didn't just steal my phone. They boxed me in. They waited until I was deep enough into a dead zone that even if I had a phone, it would have been useless. Then they killed the one thing that could have reached out anyway. And the road crews? Closing the pass right after we went through? The wreck ahead? Maybe the mountain did that on its own. Or maybe these guys had been running this stretch long enough to know exactly where storms turn into cages. The part that made my stomach drop wasn't the plan. It was how confident they'd been about it. They expected me to be helpless, expected me to open the door, expected to take my keys and drive my rig like it belonged to them. Then the woods reminded them they weren't the only predators out here. I stared at the mirror where the clone truck glowed red in the snow. "Okay," I whispered. "So what are you really hauling, and why is it worth dying for?" The radio story came back to me in pieces, like a song you can't stop humming once it starts. High-value medication. Temperature controlled. Missing somewhere between the warehouse and the next scan. I'd ignored it because I wanted to. Because connecting dots turns a bad night into a nightmare. Now the dots were lined up on my dashboard. That extra line item on my manifest. The temp, do not freeze warning. The logger zip-tied near the front seam of my trailer like a little electronic tattletale. And the fact that I was hauling soda in a plain dry van, not a reefer. You don't put "do not freeze" on cola. Cola can freeze and thaw and still be cola. Ugly, flat cola, but nobody goes to prison over it. Medicine is different. Medicine has rules. Temp ranges, chain of custody. People who get fired, sued, arrested if it goes missing or shows up wrong. I felt my stomach twist as I pictured that partner freight line the dock guy had tossed at me like a cigarette butt. Partner freight. Sure. More like a hiding place. A holiday Coca-Cola trailer is the perfect camouflage. Nobody expects anything weird in it. It's constant volume in December, trucks everywhere, pallets stacked high, seals slapped on fast. You slip a few cases of something small and expensive into the middle, you seal it, and it rides right past anybody who isn't looking hard. And if someone is looking hard, you make sure the blame lands somewhere else. My eyes drifted to the back wall of the cab, to the trailer beyond it, to the faint cough I'd heard, the tapping, like a human trying not to be heard. I imagined a warehouse guy, some middle manager, getting grabbed in a parking lot because he noticed the wrong label or the wrong pallet count. Dragged into the very shipment they stole so he'd be part of the story whether he wanted to or not. And suddenly, I understood why they'd needed me alive. Why they'd tried to talk instead of shoot. Why they'd come dressed like Santa instead of ski masks. They wanted clean, quiet, No witnesses, just a driver who would hand them the keys and disappear. I stared at the mirror again. The clone truck's red outline lights pulsed once, impatient, like it was reminding me, "You're not just carrying soda, buddy. You're carrying trouble." I couldn't unhear the cough. Once your brain labels a sound as human, it starts hunting for it in every pause. Every time the wind dropped, I leaned toward the sleeper wall, like I could hear through 40 feet of freight. Finally, I did the stupid thing. Just not the deadly stupid thing. I grabbed the tire thumper from behind my seat, not as a weapon, just something solid. I rapped it twice against the back wall of the cab. Thunk, thunk. Then I waited, holding my breath. Nothing. I almost told myself I'd imagined it again, until a faint answer came back from the trailer. 2 taps, soft, weak, like whoever made them was saving strength. My scalp prickled. I leaned close and spoke low, careful, like volume mattered. "Hey," I said. "If you can hear me, don't yell. Just tap once if you're alone, twice if there's more than one." A pause. 2 taps again. "Okay," I whispered. "Okay. What's your name?" The answer was so faint I barely caught it. More breath than voice, filtered through metal and cargo. "Evan," it said. Then, like he remembered the rules, he added, "Pharma." My stomach turned over. "You're not supposed to be in there," I said. A weak, bitter sound. Almost a laugh, almost a cough. "They took me with it," Evan said. "They said I'll confess on video. Somewhere, south, Mexico. Make it look like I stole it." He paused, breathing hard. "Then, they don't need me." I gripped the thumper until my knuckles hurt. "Listen to me," I said. "I can't open these doors out here, not right now. But I hear you. You stay alive. You understand?" A single tap this time. Slow, grateful, terrified. Outside, the clone truck's lights pulsed once, like it knew we were talking. And the woods stayed quiet, like it was listening too. For about 10 seconds, my brain tried to be selfish. It ran the math like it always does when something goes wrong. My kid needs that bonus. I've got no phone, no comms, a dead end ahead, and a crew of criminals parked behind me. The smart move is survive first, worry later. Get out when the plow shows. Drive straight to the nearest lit place. Let the cops sort out the rest. Then I heard Evan cough again. Small, controlled, like he was trying not to waste air. And the math changed. Because if I drove out of here and left him locked in my trailer, I'd be doing their job for them. They wouldn't even have to kill him. They'd just wait until I was gone, cut the seal, drag him out, and make their little Mexico video happen on their schedule. Or worse, leave him in there until nobody heard him at all. I pressed my forehead to the cold glass and stared at the snow. My hands shook, not from fear, but from the weight of the choice. "Evan," I whispered toward the sleeper wall. "I'm not leaving you." A single tap came back. Slow, like he didn't want to believe me. "I can't open the doors here," I said. "Not with them outside and whatever's in those trees. But when this road opens, I'm taking you to people. Lights, cameras, real help. You hear me?" 2 taps. Harder this time. A yes that cost him effort. Behind me, the clone truck gave a short horn blast, then another, like it was impatient with my silence. Its outline lights pulsed bright, trying to bait me back into panic. I didn't bite. I stayed in road. I stayed still. I stared at the dark tree line and made myself a promise. If I got off this mountain alive, I was taking Evan with me. even if it meant I had to carry him out of hell in a Coca-Cola trailer. The mountain didn't let you rest, but your body didn't care. After the adrenaline burned off, exhaustion came creeping in like frost. Quiet at first, then everywhere. My eyes kept trying to close on their own, not fully, just little slow blinks that lasted a beat too long, the kind that can turn into disaster without warning. I caught myself once, head dipping, chin hitting my chest, and my heart jumped like I'd almost fallen off a roof. "Hey," I said out loud, sharp. "Stay with me." Talking to yourself in a truck isn't weird. It's survival. Silence makes you drift. I rolled the driver's window down an inch. Cold air cut into my face like a knife, but it helped. I chewed a piece of gum so hard my jaw ached. I turned the heater down, then up, then down again, trying to find the sweet spot where I wouldn't fog the glass, but also wouldn't freeze. Every 5 minutes, I forced myself to do a check, like I was still driving. Mirrors, gauges, windshield corners, fuel. I counted the ticks of my hazards. I recited my kid's schedule in my head: dentist appointment, braces payment, school pickup. Anything real enough to keep me anchored. Behind me, the clone truck pulsed bright again, like it was testing my will. A short horn blast came through the storm, just one, then silence. I didn't look away from the tree line for long, not after what I had seen. Somewhere in the trailer, Evan coughed, small, controlled. I answered with 2 taps on the back wall, my version of "I'm here." I didn't want him to think I'd passed out, because the ugly truth was, I was close. And out here, in this dead pocket of mountain road, falling asleep wasn't just dangerous. It was an invitation. It started as a glow that didn't belong to either of us. Not red, not white. A dull, moving amber, like a cigarette ember drifting through a snowstorm. At first, I thought it was my eyes playing tricks again. Headlights refracting off ice. A reflection off the clone's stupid Christmas lights. Anything but hope. Then the glow blinked. Once, twice, amber beacons. And under the wind, I heard a sound I hadn't heard all night. A deep, steady rumble that wasn't my engine. A diesel working hard. A heavy blade scraping packed snow. A plow. My throat tightened so fast, it hurt. I leaned forward until my forehead almost touched the windshield, wiping a clear patch with my sleeve. Through that little circle, I saw it. Yellow lights bobbing uphill, swallowed and revealed by curtains of snow. The road crews were coming from the other side, just like the guy at the closure had said. When they could. The plow's headlights cut a bright tunnel. Its blade threw a wave of snow off the road in a rolling, violent spray. It looked like an animal forcing its way through a blizzard. Behind me, the clone truck's outline lights flared, then dimmed, like the driver couldn't decide whether to hide or show off. A short horn blast came from them, sharp, impatient. I ignored it. I tapped the back wall twice. "Evan," I whispered, even though he couldn't hear the word. "Hold on." As the plow got closer, something else happened. Small, but it hit my nerves hard. Out near the tree line. The pressure eased. That's the only way I can explain it. The woods felt less close. The silence changed shape. I heard one heavy crunch, like something shifting its weight, then another farther back. Not running, retreating. The amber lights rolled nearer, and for the first time in hours, I felt the mountain loosen its grip. Not because I was safe, because the board had changed. And now everybody, me, the clone, whatever lived in those trees, had to make their next move. For the first time all night, I felt something close to relief. The plow was real. The amber beacons were real. The blade sound was real. That meant people. That meant rules again. Cameras, radios, paperwork, anything except this private little nightmare on the mountain. I should have known the clone wouldn't let that happen clean. As the plow got within a few hundred yards, the clone's outline lights surged bright, then stuttered like the driver was panicking. A horn blast rolled through the storm, long and low, aimed downhill, not at me, like a signal. Then their driver's door cracked. Not wide, just enough. A figure slid out, Santa jacket, hood up, face swallowed by snow, and stayed low between the two trucks where the plow's headlights couldn't fully catch him. He moved fast, using the roar of the blade and the wind to hide the crunch of his boots. I watched him come, my stomach turning to ice. He didn't run at my steps like before. He didn't act tough, he acted desperate. He got close enough to slap the side of my door twice, hard. Not a polite knock, an order. "Open it," he hissed through the crack in my windowsill. "Give me the keys, right now." I shook my head once, slow. "No." His breath puffed white against the glass. I saw his hand drop low like he was holding something heavy close to his thigh, not a wrench, not a flashlight. "Plow's coming," he whispered, voice shaking with anger and fear. "If they see our truck, we're done. Open up or I swear." He cut off mid-sentence. Not because I interrupted him, because somewhere behind him, near the tree line, the snow made that slow, deliberate crunch again. He froze. I saw it in his shoulders, in the way his head tilted, listening. Then he backed away from my door like it burned him. The plow's amber lights washed closer, and the Santa figure stumbled back toward the clone, suddenly in a hurry to get inside. They weren't afraid of the police. They were afraid of stepping too far into the dark. The plow rolled up slow, blade angled, throwing snow off the road in a steady white wave. Its headlights hit my cab, bright enough that I had to squint. For a second I felt exposed, like every secret in my truck was written on my face. The driver pulled alongside my hood and lowered his window. A middle-aged guy with a thick beard and a county patch on his jacket leaned out, cheeks red from the cold. "You okay?" he shouted. "Road's blocked up there. We're cutting a lane back down." I opened my window a crack. Cold air knifed in. "I'm okay," I yelled back, keeping it simple. Lost comms, no phone. He nodded like that happened more often than people think. "Happens up here. You got chains? Keep 'em on. Follow me down when I turn." I nodded hard, grateful for the normalness of it. Then I saw him glance past me. At the clone truck, its red outline lights were still blazing like it wanted the whole mountain to remember it existed. The plow driver frowned. "Who's that?" he shouted. My mouth went dry. I could have said the truth. I could have yelled, "They stole my phone. They tried to jack me. There's a man in my trailer." But truth takes time, and time is what those guys used to kill you. So I did the only thing I could do fast. I kept my face calm and my voice boring. "Another holiday run," I said. Came up behind me. The plow driver didn't like it, but he didn't have the bandwidth to investigate in a whiteout. He had a blade and a schedule and a pass that wanted to swallow cars. He pointed uphill. "We're clearing. Stay put until I swing around. Don't go wandering." "I won't," I said. And that was the most honest thing I'd said all night. As his window rolled up, the plow's amber beacons washed the trees in moving light. The forest edge looked less like a mouth and more like just woods. The clone truck dimmed its lights suddenly, like a child caught misbehaving. And in that shifting, borrowed glow, I felt it again. The sense of something heavy backing away from the road, deeper into the dark. Not gone. Just waiting for the lights to leave. The plow eased forward, blade down, and the whole mountain seemed to shift with it. Snow rolled off the road in heavy sheets, revealing 2 dark tracks of wet pavement like a path being carved out of nowhere. The amber beacons swung across my windshield in a steady rhythm. And with each sweep, the tree line looked a little less like a threat and a little more like what it was, just trees. "Follow me down," the plow driver yelled through his closed window, pointing with 2 fingers like he was directing traffic in a parking lot. I nodded, put my truck in gear, and felt the chains bite as I pulled out of the turnout. The cab shuddered under the load, the tires clanking like I was dragging a bag of tools behind me. I kept my truck in road, no holiday outline, no pulsing red bait. Just marker lights and headlights, boring and small. For a few seconds, it worked. The pressure in the air stayed lower. No scrape, no thump. Just the storm in the blade. Then the clone truck rolled out behind me. Not far. Not close enough to hit me, just close enough to stay in my mirrors. Its outline lights stayed dim now, like it had learned the same lesson I had. Like bright light in these woods came with a price. We started down in a slow, awkward line. Plow first, then me, then the clone. 3 vehicles crawling through a white tunnel, pretending we were just strangers sharing a detour. I tapped twice on the back wall. Evan answered with 1 weak tap. Still alive. As the road curved left, I caught a flash in my mirror that didn't match either truck. 2 headlights, low and wide, sitting back in the snow haze, farther than the clone, but tracking us. A 4th vehicle. My stomach tightened. They weren't just following. They were setting a corridor, and I was right in the middle of it. The downhill grade was worse than the climb. Going up, the mountain just tries to stop you. Going down, it tries to throw you. I kept my speed low. Too low for comfort, high enough to keep steering control. The chains clattered with every rotation, and I rode the engine brake like it was the only thing holding my life together. The plow stayed ahead, blade scraping, amber lights flashing. It cut a lane, but it couldn't fix physics. Snow kept blowing back onto the cleared track, and every curve came with a fresh coat of slick. Behind me, the clone truck stayed in line, dim lights, careful distance. Too careful, like it was waiting for a mistake. Then the road tightened into a hard right bend, and the plow's taillights disappeared behind the wall of trees. For a second, it was just me in the turn. I started easing into it, and the clone moved. Not ramming, not accelerating like a maniac. A smooth drift toward my left rear quarter, like it wanted to live right in my blind spot. Like it wanted to push my trailer just enough to make it break traction. My hands tightened on the wheel. I tapped the brake, gentle, just to signal. The clone didn't back off. It crept closer, and I felt the trailer start to squirm, that subtle sideways pull that comes before a slide. "Don't you?" I whispered, teeth clenched. I eased the wheel, countering the drift, keeping my trailer straight. The engine brake whined. The chains grabbed, slipped, grabbed again. For a heartbeat, the trailer fishtailed, just a few inches, but enough to make my stomach drop. The clone's headlights flared in my mirrors as it corrected too, like it enjoyed the dance. Then the plow came back into view, and the clone behaved again. Fell back into line, innocent. My pulse hammered so hard it blurred my vision. That wasn't random. They weren't just following me. They were testing how close to the edge they could push me without anyone noticing. And on a mountain road in a blizzard, the edge wasn't metaphorical. It was a drop into black trees. When you're trapped, you start thinking like a rat. Not, how do I win? But, where's the nearest hole I can squeeze into that has teeth of its own? Lights, cameras. People who don't care about my bonus or their little Santa uniforms. As the grade eased and the snow thinned just a hair, the highway signs started showing again, green rectangles ghosting in and out of the white. My eyes latched onto every reflective word like it was a lifeline. Exit 112, Industrial Park, Truck Services, 24HR. I felt my chest loosen for the first time since the pass. Not relief, focus. I'd run freight long enough to know what that meant. A big logistics yard, high mast lights, gates, security shack, cameras on poles. Not a quiet little mom and pop stop where everyone's asleep by midnight. This was the kind of place that stayed awake because money never stops moving. I tapped it twice on the back wall. "Hold on," I whispered. Evan answered with a weak tap. Ahead, the plow's amber beacons drifted right, county shop turnoff. The driver slowed, arm out the window, pointing down the main highway like, "Keep going." The moment his lights peeled away, the world got darker. And the clone reacted instantly. Its headlights grew in my mirrors. Not by much, just enough to tighten my shoulders. Farther back, those low pickup headlights brightened too, like it had been waiting for the plow to leave before it breathed again. They wanted me alone. I didn't signal for the exit, didn't touch the blinker. I kept my speed steady, boring. I let them think I was just another tired driver rolling downhill, praying for daylight. Then the exit 112 sign flashed past my right window. I took the ramp at the last possible second, steering smooth so the trailer wouldn't slide. In the mirror, the clone's front end dipped hard. It was coming with me, and so was the pickup. The ramp dropped me into a different world. The snow was still there, but the darkness wasn't. High mast lights towered over the industrial park like stadium poles, turning the falling flakes into glitter. Security fencing ran along both sides of the road, and cameras hung from arms on tall posts, black little eyes looking down. At the entrance, a gatehouse sat behind concrete barriers. A security guard in a thick jacket stepped out under a floodlight and raised one gloved hand. I didn't slow the way they expected. I rolled up fast enough to make the guard stiffen, then stopped hard in the lane. Hazards on, engine rumbling, chains clinking as the truck settled. I leaned out the window and shouted, voice rough but clear. "Call 911, now. I've got a man locked in my trailer and a clone rig behind me tried to take my truck." The guard blinked like he didn't have a script for that. His hand went to his radio. Behind me, the clone truck hit the ramp too late to look casual. Its headlights washed over the fence. Then it braked hard, stopping short of the gate, like it suddenly remembered cameras existed. The pickup's headlights appeared behind it, hesitating farther back in the shadows. The guard's radio crackled. He spoke fast, eyes darting between me and the glowing red rig behind. "Who are they?" he asked. "I don't know," I said. "But I lost comms up on the pass. They stole my phone. One of them." I swallowed, forcing the words past my throat. "One of them died out there." The guard didn't ask questions after that. He jogged back into the gatehouse, and I saw him through the glass on a desk phone. Old school, hardwired, smart. A second guard stepped out with a flashlight and a hand near his belt. Not playing hero, just ready to shut the gate. The clone truck's outline lights flickered once, then dimmed. Not to bait the woods this time. To hide its face. I sat there under all that bright light, chest heaving, and tapped twice on the back wall. Evan answered. 3 taps, urgent. Help was finally close enough to hear. When the sirens finally showed, they sounded wrong at first. Too clean, too normal. Blue and red lights reflected off the snow and the metal fencing like a movie set. And for a second, my brain didn't believe they were for me. Like the mountain had made up a new illusion just to mess with my head. 2 patrol cars rolled into the entrance, then a third vehicle, an unmarked SUV that moved with a different kind of purpose. Officers stepped out, shoulders hunched against the cold, hands near their belts, eyes sharp. The security guard pointed toward the clone truck. The clone tried to back up, not fast, not reckless, just enough to create distance, enough to maybe disappear into the industrial maze. It didn't work. The gate behind it dropped with a heavy clang, and a patrol car swung sideways to block the lane. The pickup's headlights flickered, then vanished as it turned away into darkness. Cowards. An officer approached my door and spoke like he'd done this 1,000 times. Calm, direct. "Sir, are you injured?" "No," I said. My voice cracked anyway. "But there's a guy in my trailer, alive." That changed everything. Radios came alive. Flashlights swept. The yard lights made every movement sharp and real. They brought bolt cutters to the seal. One clean snip, and the little metal strip that had ruled my night fell away like nothing. The trailer latch groaned when they pulled it, iced and stubborn, then finally gave with a loud metallic pop. The doors opened. Cold air rushed out, and with it a smell that wasn't soda. Plastic wrap, cardboard, and something faintly chemical. A man blinked from the darkness between pallets. Pale, shaking, hands up even though no one had told him to. "Evan," I said. My throat tightened. He nodded once, eyes wet. They said you'd hand it over." I looked past him and saw the hidden cases, small boxes tucked deep behind cola, the kind of cargo that fits in a backpack but costs more than my truck. The officers moved fast after that. I didn't watch the arrests. I didn't need to. I just sat on my step under the floodlights, breathing, feeling the cold like a blessing. Later, driving home, the snow finally eased. And in my mirror, for one brief second, I caught a faint red glow, gone as soon as I blinked. Just a reflection. Probably. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe, like, and hit the bell so you won't miss what's next.